you have given yourself autonomy over to someone. Where have you denied your intuitive sensing? Has there been a situation recently where some part of you said yes, but out of your mouth came no, or the opposite? Or you really felt like, I really want to go this way, for whatever reason, in whatever case, but you decided to follow somebody else. And sometimes that can be a really great thing. And sometimes it's a denial of our intuitive sensing. So close your eyes and think about that. When you denied your intuitive sensing, this is common in healthcare too. Doctor knows best. Listen to the professional. Has there been a situation recently where you've denied your intuitive knowing? And what did that leave you? Where did that leave you? Did you have a sense of loss, or a sense of confusion, or a sense of paradox within you? Did it lead to any irritation or resentment? Or did it give you a sense of relief? Like, oh, thank God, I don't have to make all the decisions. Right? So know yourself, and moment by moment, know yourself. Sometimes it's really nice to give the reins over to somebody else. And now think of a time when you had a little more self-agency, where perhaps the stream was going one direction and you decided to go in another. This takes a lot of bravery, takes a lot of self-reliance and assuredness. So can you think of a time when, you wanted to say yes and you said yes, or you wanted to say no and you said no, even if the pressure was to do the opposite? Or perhaps it was a moment when there was confusion and you just made a decision. Right or wrong, you jumped off the cliff. And whatever you're thinking of, what did you experience? What was the result of you following this sense of self-agency? Was there a repatterning of any kind? Was there fear? Was there spaciousness? What was there? I'm just throwing out ideas, but really explore what that felt like to you. And now come into your body here and now. Forget about the past and ask yourself, what do I need today? If I am going to be true to myself without expectations or a sense of duty, or even, the attachment to woulda, coulda, shoulda, or a sense of shame. There's so many things that get in the way from our intuition guiding us. So if you clear the decks a little bit and take a breath and ask your body, what do you need? And ask your mind, what do you need? And same, ask your spirit, what do you need? And place your palms together at the heart and bow in. Can you honor what came up? Whatever answers the body, mind, spirit just gave you, suggestions, offerings that you received, can you honor this in your practice? Regardless of what I throw out, regardless of what the trepidations in your mind might tell you. All right, let's release the hands and come down onto your back. Now, gentle yoga is so perfect for this because we don't have to feel like we have to rush. And there's permission. Always grant yourself permission to serve yourself best. Doesn't have to just be the milieu of gentle yoga. It can be any class, even if it's a power vinyasa class. If you need to make a change, you can. So as you stretch your body down on the floor, feel yourself come into the sensing of your body in space, the way your outer body feels, like maybe your skin and the sense of space that you're taking up, the feeling of grounding on the floor. And then come into the inner sensations as well. How's your breath? How are your joint spaces? How does it feel to yield from the inside? Not just the feeling of touching the ground, but the weightedness within you. How are these things landing? All right, restore the breath. Okay, over and over, restore the breath. Let it be your primary light that you are guided by. Okay. If your breath can't go with you, there's no point going there, wherever there is. Okay, let's stretch your arms overhead if it feels good. Stretch one side of the body, the other. What are you sensing? Okay, what kind of feeling tone is in your body when you have a different movement like this versus just lying down? And then bring the knees into the chest and rock a little bit from side to side. Here you are on your mat all by yourself. It's this beautiful opportunity to just be present with yourself. My only job is to hold space for you so you don't walk away and get on your phone, right? So let's go ahead and hold that space for each other, rocking from side to side. Let's circle the knees. And circle the knees the other way. How does this feel on your sacrum? Sense into what you're experiencing. Try to develop that heightened awareness of your sensations. Draw the right knee in and roll your ankles around. Feel compression, feel extension, feel rotation in the ankles. Wake up your feet. What's here? Do you like the feeling of expanding your feet? Do they get crammed in shoes all day? Change sides, left knee into the chest, right leg long on the floor. Feel both extension and compression, and then feel some rotation. Moving those ankles around. See if you can get the feeling to travel up all the way to your knees, like feeling your calves, feeling your outer shins, the front of your shins, as you move your ankles around. And then let's bring both knees into the chest. Open up the knees away from each other and swing them back in. Just coming back and forth into some range of motion in the hips. Notice what your pelvis is doing when you do this. Is it very still on the ground or is there some mobility? How is your breath? Remember, if you're a habitual breath holder, if you're a habitual high, tight breather, see what you can do to loosen your breath up. Let it be your guide. Stretch your limbs wide on the floor. Open your body up. Wiggle your fingers and your toes. And then draw your knees into your chest. Pull your head up too. A couple of times, feeling that sense of a whole body expansion. Does it feel good to inhale here? And as you draw your knees in, is it natural for you to exhale? Where is the pattern of your breath taking you? Let's find some spaciousness again, and then find that condensement in the body. All right, relax your head down onto the ground, 2 feet on the floor, hip width apart. Have your feet underneath your knees. We're going to do some raising and lowering of bridge poses. Okay, so flip your palms up toward the sky. Before you move anything, pay attention to your shoulders too. Can you let the heads of the arm bones sink a bit toward the earth? Can you feel that sense of spreading across your throat, your neck, the base of your skull, your chest, so that you're not all crunched up before we even begin? Plant your feet, make sure they feel comfortable. And then when you're ready, we're gonna lift the pelvis up. And then we're gonna slowly lower the pelvis down. So as we do this nice and slow, see if you can feel all 4 points of your feet grounding into the earth the whole way through. Can you feel that your hips are traveling at the same pace? Left and right are lifting at the same time. Left and right are lowering at the same time. Can you feel that there's tons of muscle groups here, that it's not just one? So which do you rely on? Do you rely on your hamstrings or your quads or your glutes? Do you rely on your neck? Where is your tendency to move in and out slowly through this pose? Hopefully you're starting to feel a little fatigue in multiple muscle groups, not just one. But notice your dominance as you lift up and as you lower down, nice and slow, moving with breath. You can imagine a block between your legs if they tend to get wobbly and destabilized. Let's do a couple more. Inhale and lifting the pelvis, feeling the engagement of your glutes, your hamstrings, your inner thighs, feeling the engagement of your quadricep muscles, your outer hips, even your hip flexors. Relax your neck and shoulders. Let's do one more. Take a breath, all 4 points of the feet rooting. How is your breath? How is the pace, left and right? Are you lifting and lowering in symmetry? Okay. All right, let's relax and melt back down onto the ground. Let everything soften for a moment. Just notice what's alive and awake. We're going to roll over onto our side. Feel free to put an arm underneath your head or a pillow or a blanket. We're going to do some clamshells. Okay, so have that sense of stacking. Now, your knees do not have to be at right angles to your hips. They can be a little lower, a little higher. Just find a comfortable place for you. Okay, we're stacking our ankles on top of each other. We're going to open up our clams so our knees pull away from each other. We're going to lift that top knee. I don't remember whether I said which side you're on. So I'm on my right side. I'm lifting my left knee up, and then I'm going to lower it back down. So one of the things you want to focus on when we do this is to keep your shoulders and your pelvis stacked, so we're not rolling our torso back and forward like a wave. We're keeping neutral in our spine, our pelvis, and our shoulders, so the action is very isolated to those deep rotating muscles underneath our glutes. Now notice, are you locked in your breath? Are you concentrating on not moving so much that you're not moving your breath either? Where do you want to inhale? Where do you want to exhale? Is there a natural tendency to this movement pattern for you? Notice if your feet are all freaking out. Are they all tense and tight? See if you can relax your feet. Try to get the action to really be isolated in the hip. We're moving slowly. We're breathing. We're stacking shoulders and pelvis. And as you do this, are you starting to understand that piriformis muscle, that deep, there's 6 of them actually, not just your piriformis. Your piriformis is the biggest one. But these are muscles that help stabilize the sacroiliac joint. They're very good for us, and we don't often move in this way throughout the day. So it's a great way to strengthen and isolate some of these muscle groups. Relax now, melt. Let's also remember that no muscle truly works in isolation. We can isolate to become more aware, to focus on something and to build some awareness and strength. But ultimately, we want to throw those muscles back into the pool and swim with all the other muscles. Okay, so let's go ahead and roll over onto our other side. So I'm coming onto my left. Support underneath your head with a blanket, an arm, a pillow, whatever you need. We're stacking our hips, we're stacking our ribs and shoulders, we're relaxing our feet, and we're going to inhale or exhale, whichever feels natural to you, as we move through slowly opening our knees up and then closing our knees up. See if you can go just as slowly on the closing of the clamshell as you do on the opening of the clamshell. So see if you can have an even pace for the two. Keep breathing. Of course, we're isolating these muscles, but we want to have that sense that there's relaxation. Relax your feet, relax your neck. See if you can relax your breath. Notice and rely. Let's befriend these muscles, right? So they're so important for stabilizing our sacrum. We don't realize how much we use these muscles when we're walking. I mean, we don't walk like this, right? We're not, opening and closing our knees, but we have forces that destabilize us a lot as we walk along an uneven surface. these muscles respond and keep us very stable. So let's have some gratitude for the deep stability that's gained from these underbelly muscles. They're not as powerful as the glutes. They don't have, they're not as shiny and bright as the glutes. They don't get all the glory. They're kind of tucked away, hidden inside. So let's shine some light. And then when you're ready, let's do one more. Opening up the knees away from each other and then bringing them back in. Relax for a moment before we go or do anything else. And then we're going to come to lie down on our back when you're ready. Okay, a couple of pelvic tilts here. So first, before you do anything, put your feet on the ground and just notice, are you a little fatigued in those deeper muscles? Do you have a little awareness in them from the two poses we've done so far? Okay, so now let's just anterior and posterior tilt the pelvis. So as you drop the tailbone down and lift the top of the sacrum up, this is called nutation. Widen the sit bones, feel the low back gap grow. And then as you posterior tilt or counter nutate the sacrum, we're going to draw our sit bones toward each other, lift the tail, drop the top of the sacrum, low back moves into the floor. All right, so just go back and forth between these two actions of nutation and counter nutation, anterior and posterior tilting of the pelvis, and notice what you feel. Are you breathing? Can you feel the pelvic floor muscles? Are they releasing and engaging at all? Do you tend to overpower the less dominant pelvic floor muscles with the more dominant glutes? All right, and come to neutral. I promise we're almost off the ground, okay? Maybe you're really enjoying being on the ground. I hope so. I'm trying to do all the ground stuff at one time, so once we get up, it's a little bit better. Grab your strap. We're going to wrap it around our thighs. Okay. I think you all have done this with me, but just to be on the safe side, this is a pelvic reset. It's really good for your sacroiliac joints if you tend to have some SI joints that destabilize. Okay, so we're going to take a block and stick it between our thighs and have the strap around our thighs. Okay, so first just feel this neutral territory. There's a lot of support here. Can you relax the pelvis on the floor? Now, we're going to do that. We're going to remove the block in just a moment, but before we do, I just want you to feel that the block is a placeholder for neutral, that you feel like your thighs can rest up against it and you can be relaxed in your neutral state that you have support on the outside and support on the inside. So we're going to do this in 3 different directions now. If you have sacroiliac joint instability, I want you to only do hip width apart. I'm going to do 3 different directions, but if you're not feeling okay today, hip width apart is the safest place for you. Let's take the block out for a moment, have it handy because we're going to need it again in a moment. Bring your legs together. Touch your knees and ankles. Okay, tighten the strap just a little bit so that you're firm on support at your mid-thighs. We're going to take a deep breath in, ground the big toes and the inner heels, engage your core, and pull your legs apart into the strap. And then release and come back to center. And stay grounded. So as we do this, everything we've done so far, we're kind of pulsing. We're doing repetitions. So see what it feels like to move into the strap. You don't have to give it everything you got, like 20, 25% of your effort, and then move away from the strap. Head back toward the midline. So ground the big toes and the inner heels because they want to lift up typically when we do this. And engage your core. Find your transverse abdominis as you pull your knees apart and bring them back in. Now, once you got the movement down, the core engagement, the feet, the pulling apart and bringing back in with the legs, see if you can notice if you have dominance, if you have stronger pull on one side than the other. Just like when we were doing the bridge poses, you might have felt that one side was stronger than the other. Now, also notice if you're holding your breath. It's so, especially if you've never done this before and you're like, wait, what are we doing? Then you might feel like you have to hold your breath to concentrate, but let's see what we can do to keep the breath moving. All right, Now let's go ahead and relax. We're going to open the strap up a little bit wider, and we're going to take our feet hip width apart. So now there's a gap between our legs. The strap is, halfway down your thighs or so. You adjust. It can be anywhere really, wherever you feel most support. Same thing applies. Root the big toes and the inner heels. Engage your core. Pull out to the strap. So we're pressing into the outside edges of the strap, and then release to come back in. Notice your breath. Notice your dominance patterns. Notice, there's a reason why I did those anterior and posterior tilts of the pelvis. Notice if you start to compensate and try to pull out of a neutral pelvis. Are you rounding the pelvis or overarching the pelvis to do this? See if you can be aware of the neutral pelvis as you move in this action. 20-25% of effort against the strap, and then slowly release back in. Are you breathing? How about your neck and shoulders? Are they, wanting to play? See if you can let them rest at the sidelines. Okay, and then we're going to go ahead and take your legs even wider. So loosen the strap. Now our legs are wider than hip width apart. And you might find, I like this version. I like this version. So whatever feels nourishing to your body, if you don't have time to do all three variations, choose one you like the best and do a few rounds of this throughout, sometime during the day if you're having trouble with SI joint, low back pain, things like that. All right, so ground the big toes and the inner heels. Engage your core, and by core, I don't mean your sit-up core. I don't mean pull your chest up or your chin up. I mean that shrink wrap of your belly, that transverse abdominis. So pull your legs into the strap, make sure you're breathing, and come back in. What are you feeling here? Can you feel this at your sacrum? It's subtle, right? This is not like the clamshells where we have this big movement with those muscles that attach onto your sacrum. But can you feel the stabilizing? That there's a lot of deep muscle groups that can help you stabilize your sacrum, your core, your transverse abdominis, those outer hip muscles. There's so much that can impact your pelvis. Now let's see if we can sense, are we even? Do you have even effort, even weight in the big toes and inner heels, both sides? Do you tend to feel like you're symmetrical, or do you feel like one hip shifts up or up toward the shoulders or up toward the sky? All right, last time. How's your breath? Ground the big toes, inner heels. Exhale and release. Relax for a moment. As you relax, can you feel into your sacroiliac joints? Is there a sense of security there? Do you have a sense of, I'm stable? And now we're going to hug in. Okay, so instead of hugging out to the strap, we're going to hug into the block. So keep the strap. We're going to take the block in 3 different directions. So first, we're going to take in its widest height. So that would be this way in between your legs. And then we'll take it this way in between your legs, and then finally the narrowest way. Once again, if you're having SI joint issues, the middle way is the best way. Just stay there. So if you're able to, start with the block between your knees or thighs or wherever you put it comfortably at its longest width between your legs. Okay, and now instead of grounding the big toes and inner heels, we're going to ground the outer toes and the outer feet, because those are what are going to want to lift off the floor when we hug in. So ground all 4 corners of your feet, but stay mindful of the outer edge, engage your core, and hug to the midline. And this might hopefully give you a little, and we're hugging and releasing. We're hugging and releasing with breath. This might hopefully give you a little bit of sense of your transverse abdominis, your pelvic floor. There's a lot of muscles that if we don't overpower with our strong ones, like the glutes and our inner thighs, let some of the smaller muscles in here, we can gain some agency over muscles that are typically a little quiet in our body, or at least not in our view very often. So hugging gently to the block, try not to let your glutes or your inner thighs do everything. Grounding the feet, breathing, neck and shoulders are relaxed. What are you feeling? How does your sacrum respond to this? Is there any wiggles? Do you tend to shift or hike? Your pelvis can move around even when it's grounded on the floor. So notice what your patterns are. relax, and we're going to take the middle height, middle width of the block. Okay, so you adjust your feet, adjust the strap, and then find the outer feet, find the core on your breath, move with the breath. We're going to hug into the block and release. Now you might notice as we get more narrow, some, different things are going to have to be active in order for you to feel the stabilization in your pelvis in this pose. A lot of times when we get into a little closer, we can't rely on the same muscle groups. So once again, your inner thighs are super strong, very strong muscles, as are your glutes. They're some of our strongest muscles in our body. So try to let them not be bullies in the body. See if you can let the deep low core and the pelvic floor be a part of the equation. Grounding outer feet, relaxing with the breath, shoulders are soft. It's amazing how our traps want to just do every single thing that the body asks. So notice if your traps are trying to help. There's nothing your traps can do to help with this. They can try, but all they do is just create tension. All right, and then relax. Now we go to the most narrow width of the block. Adjust your feet, adjust the strap, adjust where the block is. Maybe you want it lower between, lower down toward your pubic bone, wherever your body is comfortable. Can you find your feet? Ground the outer corners. All 4 points of your feet are connecting. But make sure you stay grounded with the outer feet and draw in, hug in, and release. Now, if you've had any shifting, if your pelvis is a little wonky, if you have some torsion going on in your pelvis, you can find that pattern here pretty well. Like, do you have a weird sensation in your pubic bone? Your pubic bone is not a bone. It's a joint, really. It has a disc, a cartilaginous disc in between the two sides of your pelvis, and that's where your two sides of your pelvis meet. They meet at your sacroiliac joints, and they meet at your pubic symphysis. So it's really not, we say pubic bone, thinking it's just one solid bone, but it's really the two halves of the pelvis coming together with a cartilage disc in between. Can you feel that as you move your body? How's the breath? Okay, and then go ahead and relax. Take the block and strap out of the way. We've been luxuriating on the floor for a really long time, and sometimes it's good to take a slow pace. Now I want you to straighten your legs for a moment and feel into your sacroiliac joints, into your pelvis. Do you have a sense when you lay flat here, and you can feel free to shake your knees a little bit if bending your knees for a long time was troublesome. Do you have a sense that you're balanced? If you tend to have a tendency to hike one hip up high toward the shoulder or shift one hip forward, which many of us have a pelvic torsion like that, did that just help you find balance? Do you have a sense of balance between the two halves of your pelvis? And if so, enjoy it. Enjoy the symmetry. And then let's open up into the breath. Stretch and lengthen again. Wiggle your wrists, your fingers, your toes, your ankles. And then draw the knees into the chest and roll over onto your side. Come up onto all fours. One of my favorite things about teaching gentle yoga is that I don't feel guilty about spending a lot of time doing subtle things like that. So, not that we should ever feel guilty, but sometimes, the pressure is there to move. And sometimes the best thing we can do, start to move into some cat-cows. Sometimes the best thing we can do is slow all of our movement down and focus on these subtleties to really dive into the sensation of the body. Let's start moving cat-cows. Notice the sacrum. Notice the pelvis. Is it feeling nice and stable? Is there some symmetry that maybe might be new to you from that pelvic stabilizing work we just did? Breathing your way through this. All right, and then feel free to move things around. So roll through your shoulders, do any kind of movement. Remember, we're following a sense of self-agency. If you didn't have a teacher to tell you what to do. And all you needed was a container of space, like now I'm doing, instead of, all the other things that might distract me into stepping away from the presence of my body. What does your body want? Okay? Can you trust yourself? Can you listen to yourself instead of anyone else? Okay, if it feels good to you, let's go ahead and find dog pose. If something else feels good to you, then go ahead and find a different posture. So follow the pathway. Really encourage you sometime, if you can manage it, to practice without a guide, to let your body be the guide, to let your breath be the guide. So spread out your hands and your feet. See what it feels like to enjoy some awakening in the backs of the legs. Are you stable? Can you feel all 4 points of contact yielding into the earth and rebounding? Feeling that sense of a balance between giving to the earth and pushing off the earth. Feel the head relax. Can you feel symmetry in your pelvis now? So what feels best? Do you have a desire to take your legs wider apart? Do you have a desire to bring them closer? Where's the perfect place for you to have your feet in relation to each other, as well as in relation to your hands, for you to feel most at ease in the breath and in the pelvis? So experiment a little bit. Try bringing your feet a little closer. See what that feels like. Try bringing them wider. Maybe the toes turn in. See what is available for you to experiment with what's natural, instead of the feet must be hip width apart. Okay, so try not to follow rules. Follow principles of spaciousness in my pelvis and stability in my pelvis. And if those are principles we're following, what's best to cultivate that within you? Walk your feet forward and come into Uttanasana. Same thing applies. Where do you want your feet to be? Relax your head. Feel your knees bend as much as you want. Let the spine cascade and release. Feel the base of your skull relax. And then as you're ready, let's rise all the way up. Come up to stand. Have some blocks handy nearby. Okay. Reach and open up. Where do you want your feet now? Okay, where do you want your arms? Do you feel like taking a big chest opener? Do you feel like not doing that? And then when you come to stand in Tadasana, where do you want your feet to be? Sometimes I like to stand with my feet wider. Sometimes I like to have my hands on my hips. Sometimes I like to have my hands dangling. So what's going to give you a grounding sensation? What's going to give you your breath the best? Okay, so don't worry about the way your pose looks. Don't worry at all, but feel how your pose feels most stable, most spacious. Always search for the stability and the freedom. Reach the arms up to the sky, open the chest, and then exhale and fold forward. Knees are bent if you want them to be. Inhale for a halfway lift. Legs can go straighter, spine can go straighter. Release down, step your left foot back. Our right foot's going to stay forward, come into a lunge. Maybe you want the right foot way out to the side. Maybe you want your back knee down onto the ground. Maybe you want your hands on a piece of furniture or on your leg instead of low down on the floor or on blocks. So seek out what's going to help you stretch open the hip flexor of the back leg. Feel the elongation of your spine. The shoulder blades soften down away from the ears. And then if you're ready, go ahead and climb up. Maybe your arms want to come to the sky. Maybe there's something totally different you'd rather do with your arms. So wherever you find most sense of challenging your balance a little bit, but also feeling your joint spaces be free, check in with the back knee. When you straighten that leg, do you tend to lock the knee out? Sometimes you can get more of a stretch in the hip flexors if you unlock the knee and instead lift through the front spine. Exhale and place the hands down onto the floor blocks or legs and walk your feet back foot forward, fold in half. Extend the spine, halfway lift. Exhale and melt. Let's take your other foot back. So now our left foot is forward, our right foot is back. So we don't want to mess up all that spinal balancing we just did by doing weird things in our pelvis when we're asymmetrical like this. So before you come up, find your pelvis. Are you even across your sacrum, or do you have one hip hiked out or up? See if you can find that sense of stability. Ground into the earth, hug to the midline with your inner thighs, stabilize with your core, and find your way up. Where do you want the arms to be in space? What gives you freedom? Can you soften the skin a little bit? Is there a sense of grounding and the elongation simultaneously? The sense of stability and freedom marrying each other, balancing each other. Seek the breath. Unwind that back knee. If it's tenterlocks out, see what muscular action you can support your body with without it being something that takes your breath on a tension ride. So are you breathing well? Walk your hands back down, back foot comes forward, fold again, and rise all the way up. Grab a block if you want to, you don't have to, and put it between your legs. So if when we were doing the dog poses in Uttanasana, you found that taking your legs really wide apart was a happy thing for your body, then maybe you want to do this pose with your legs a little bit wider and widen the block. If you're choosing a wider stance, we're going to come into chair pose. So if your legs are really wide like this and you bend your knees, sometimes if you look at me, your knees can come in with your feet out, and this isn't so healthy. So if that's the case, if you want wide legs, scrap the block and maybe turn your feet out a little tiny bit. So you want your knees, your femur bones, to be moving in the same angles as your feet. Okay? So if you're wide and your knees cave in, this is not supporting that work we just did in the sacrum very well. So you can have your legs closer, whatever feels good to you. Okay, I'm going to go hip width apart with the block because that's what feels nice in my body. Squat down to a chair. Now remember everything we just did with that pelvic balancing work. Can you imagine the strap around your thighs still? So we can both hug in and we can hug out. So with the hugging out, drop your feet into the earth and pull them apart from each other at the same time as having a little engagement on the block. So you can feel both the inner legs and the outer hips working together. How's the pelvis? Is it in a neutral place? Or have you tucked the tail too much or widened the sit bones too much? Find the neutral spine. Arms go wherever you want them to be. Very stabilizing. Sometimes the arms overhead can make everything fall apart. So if you need to, make a different choice. Breathing. All right, and then let's go ahead and come on up. Now, when you stand, what happens? Do you want to push the block? Do you want to push your whole pelvis forward? Do you want to push the block forward? Do you want to push the block back? You know, where is your tendency of your orientation of movement when you stand? Let's take the block away. Find your breath. Inhale, reaching up to the sky. Exhale, bend your knees. Again, halfway lift. The spine grows taller. Exhale and come back down. The only time we'll move through a vinyasa here. So let's go ahead and take the feet back, dog pose. Where do you want your hands? Where do you want your feet? What gives you stability and breath? Enjoy this posture. And as you're ready, come forward to your variation of a plank. That could mean your knees are down on the ground and you're on all fours. Can you feel like we did in that pelvic balancing when you hugged into the block and that sensation in the pubic bone and the feeling of integration with the deep low core? Can you find a little bit of that here? Okay, let's put our knees down if they're not already there. Find yourself down onto the ground. Roll your shoulders a few times, seeing if they can come up toward the ears, up toward the sky and down, feeling a sense of openness, and then come to a version of a back bend that's nice for your body. Cobra pose, the elbows can drop down and back. Exhale and release. Let's try legs wider and see what that might feel like. Take your hands wider and your feet wider and just engage something a little differently. Exhale and melt back down. Come up onto all fours and swish, swish. Just make sure your spine releases from the back bend. It can be trying for our bodies to go into deep flexion or extension, so just let some rotation or side lateral movements happen. And then let's come back to child's pose. Settle deeply into the hips, drop the femur bones, sit bones stay wide, full breaths in and out. We're coming back down onto our back. Here we go again. So most of the practice today is on the floor. Find your breath. We're gonna take a reverse pigeon pose. Remember, you can always put your foot against a wall or a piece of furniture. We're gonna take our right foot on top of our left knee. We're gonna stretch the piriformis now, which a lot of what we've done already has engaged the piriformis. So in order to make this action be a stretch for the piriformis, we need to get this knee, the right knee, to go past 90 degrees on the hip joint. So see if you can go to at least 90 degrees. And this looks like 90 degrees, you know, where your knee is right over your pelvis. And then if you can go past that, that's fine too. Find your breath. Elongate the spine, melt the shoulders. One of the greatest things about putting your left foot on a piece of furniture like I'm doing or a wall is that your upper body is taught how to relax in this pose instead of your traps, which always want to do everything from, you know, they want to do this job too. So if you're holding the back of your hamstring, that's okay. But sometimes it's nice to take that completely out of the picture so your spine can rest. Widen the sit bones. How is the neutral spine here? Do you tend to round the pelvis? Is your low back falling into the earth, the tailbone tipping upward? See if you can reverse that just a little bit so that you have that sense of a low back gap, a neutral low back gap. And if you're not sure, explore what is neutral in my lumbar spine. How's the breath? Okay, great. And then go ahead and relax. And you can stretch your legs out, or you can go ahead and just switch sides. So now we're going to put the left foot on the right knee. Right foot can be on the wall or furniture, or grab on behind the right thigh with your hands. Whichever is working for your body. Try to be at a 90-degree angle if you can. Allow the left knee to open up. See what it feels like to feel that rotation in the hip joint. And now notice, are you trying to shy away from that? Are you doing weird, funky things? Do you lift your right hip up toward your shoulder or your left hip up toward your shoulder? Do you tip the pelvis left or right? You know, what are the tendencies? Do you round the pelvis a whole lot? See what compensation patterns your body naturally does to step away from the depth of the stretch. And instead, balance the hips, widen the sit bones, neutral lumbar curve, elongated spine, deep breaths. What is the sensation that you're feeling? Just explore it. Is there tension anywhere that you can take away? Okay, and then relax. Bring your knees into your chest and rock a little bit from side to side. Grab your strap, lift two legs straight up in the air. Stretch the backs of the legs and the spine for a moment. And then melt. Put your feet onto the ground. Lift your hips, scooch them right over to the side a little bit. Bring your knees up, and you can always put a block underneath your knees as you drop them to the left so that you don't go so far in this twist. Take a deep breath and let your spine open. Maybe turn your head. See what it feels like to turn your head to the right as your knees go left. Can you melt the base of the skull? Can you melt the back of the neck a little bit on the ground? Does it feel good to open your chest and twist the spine? Inhale and lift the knees. Back to neutral. Feel the neutral. And then when you're ready, shift hips left, knees come up and drop them over right. You can always put a block underneath your knees if you need some height, or your legs can come to the floor, whichever is best for your body. What does your breath feel like in this pose? How can you relax places in your body, perhaps your neck, your skull, your traps? Go to the places where you know you have some patterning of work. Our traps, many of us, most of us, I would venture to say, carry a lot of tension in our neck and shoulders. So see if you can start to unwind that pattern a little bit. Notice when the body just immediately gravitates toward tension there. How's your breath?
Hi. What's all that barking about? What was you barking about?
Come back up.
One back there.
2 feet onto the ground. Neutral pelvis. One more time. We're going to keep the knees together and draw your knees in toward your chest. Rock around a little bit. Now you decide, perhaps holding behind your knees or the tops of your feet might feel really nice. Perhaps stretching your body might feel better. Okay, so decide what is your final little tweaks that you want to do in your body before Shavasana. And as you come to lie down, the gift of your practice is here. Even though our practice was not super vigorous today, it was very deep in the sense of awareness and presence. So let your body rest in that awareness and presence. Make sure you come into a comfortable place where your limbs are supported however they need to be. Your body has the sense of safety so that you can melt. And then when you get down, let yourself scan. Okay, so scan, maybe start at your head and scan your body for patterns of tension and let some things go, maybe relaxing through your face, your skull. Enjoy the little tiny muscles that decide to let go and how nice it feels for the subtleties of surrender. Find your way into a relaxed state with your limbs, your shoulders, your arms, as well as your legs. And see what that weight does for you. Is there an ease when you drop? And once again, finding the pelvis, this beautiful center of our body that is the ground for a lot of support in our movement. Can you honor this space in your body by taking your breath to it, relaxing and melting the joints of your pelvis? And just let yourself rest on the floor and breathe. Let's begin to deepen our breathing again. Allow your body to rest, feeling a sense of wholeness. And as you are ready, you can invite your transition, however that happens for you. Maybe you bounce right up. Maybe you take it nice and slow. Eventually, we're going to find ourselves back to a comfortable seat. Rest the shoulders. Feel a sense of ease in the body. As we restore this sense of self agency, when you bring your hands together, let this mudra be really a gift of that, of honoring the deep wisdom that is known only inside yourself, that cannot be felt by another. And when we come into this place of wisdom and self assuredness, we can offer with groundedness what we have to give to others. So let's find that ground and then share our love, share your care, your energy, whatever you're offering to whomever you are offering. Namaste. Thank you, everyone. Thanks for moving slowly with me today.